Our guest is the former Director General of the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency, NIMASA, Omatseye. It tells Business Incorporated that the country has a lot to do to make the maritime sector competitive in Africa. Okay, thank you, Mr. Omatseye, for your time with us on the program. First of all, I'd like you to tell us the state of the maritime sector in Nigeria.
The maritime sector right now, in Nigeria right now, I think we're very much underdeveloped. I believe that it's a sector that can actually build an economy. If you look at the sector per se, 90% of all goods moved worldwide are done by shipping, by vessels and everything else. And your participation as a country, as a nation in the maritime sector is based on the volume of trade that is actually carried by your own flagged vessels. So you can only determine our own maritime sector by the volume of trade of Nigerian goods that are actually being carried by our vessels. But what I find out a lot of is that I find that we focus a lot on the cabotage issue, and of interest I've realized that what needs to be thought about is, and I've gained quite a bit on that, you know, on my recent trip, whereby we talk about a borderless Africa. You know, it's quite exciting now because most people I'm speaking to in Africa that are maritime administrators are not talking about borderless Africa. Everybody's talking about borderless Africa, that we should not rely on these lines that were built by our colonial masters. And that is the way we as Africans can actually develop the maritime sector. So I like to, now I'm more excited talking more Pan-African than talking more localized or national issues on maritime.
When you look at the volume of trade, which you mentioned earlier on, how do you quantify it in terms of how we're doing in the country and other parts of the continent?
Well, I don't think we fared very well because, first of all, Nigeria is a major exporter of oil. Nigeria is a major exporter of gas. Nigeria also is a major exporter of raw materials and finished goods. Some goods we do export, rubber, cocoa, and the rest. Just as much as we are a major importer of finished goods. We import a lot of rice, we import a lot of wheat, a lot of cement. They'll come in by importation. And when you begin to look at the statistics of those goods that are actually being exported and those things being imported, that is how we can create a scale of how strong the Nigerian maritime sector is. And what you look at is that if we're unable to carry at least 50% of those goods on Nigerian flag vessels, then therefore we do not have any. So the question now is that how many tons of rice are being imported by Nigerian flag vessels, and how many barrels of oil are being exported on Nigerian flag vessels? Those are the questions we need to ask. And if we are looked at a percentage of near to zero, then really we really have not started, which is where we actually are.
What challenges do you think the sector is facing at the moment?
Well, I think the challenges has to do a lot more with cargo. I think that is what was really discussed in the meeting. I think what we've come to realize is the issue of cargo. A ship owner relies on cargo. A ship owner cannot basically buy a vessel if it doesn't have cargo, because it's the cargo that actually pays the freight. And the issue quite clearly is that what we find out in Africa is that, or especially in Nigeria, most of the big cargoes are actually controlled by governments. And it is the Incoterms, that is the terms of trade which government agrees on, is what determines who carries the cargo. So we look at a situation where we're in Nigeria right now. If Nigeria is trading its crude oil on an FOB basis, then what that basically means is that we don't have any control over the freight, because what you're saying is that you bring your vessel and come and carry the cargo. Whereas really what Nigeria should be doing is to be doing, I will sell my product on C&F. So what it says to the guy is that, where do you want your product delivered? The guy will say, I want it delivered at Rotterdam.